Good evening, all of you. So we will be starting this today's episode of Astro Adda, and we are happy to have today with us Dr. B S Shylaja. And before we start, I will just say you that today's topic is very important in the sense that we were deliberating on what to actually choose for a good title for a talk today, and many topics came to her mind. She suggested, and ultimately it happened that we thought this particular thing, that stone inscription and its importance. And in fact, before formally introducing our speaker, I'd like to say that she has done a lot of research work in that, and she has also published a book which she has presented me once when I visited her Jawaharlal Nehru Planetarium in Bangalore. So, history of the sky on stones. So, and in that blurb, she has mentioned that some inscriptions found in all remote corners of India carry a wealth of information on astronomical event. These are not recorded by astronomers as records of observation, but by royals and commanders to record events of donations, grants, and historic deeds. This book uncovers the astronomical data that lay concealed in the stones, not looked upon as relic sources all these years. So this book was written by Dr. B S Elaja and Geeta Kalyada Ganesha. So we have a very good topic and very good speaker today. So now I formally introduce the speaker. And before I start that, I would like to say that this Astro Adda is a joint initiative between Regional Science Center and Planetarium Calicut and Public Outreach and Education Committee of ASI. And we do it every month, once a month, and all our programs are recorded in rsapcalicut.virtual. So if you go there, you will find all the episodes, whatever has happened. So let me introduce the speaker, Dr. B S Shylaja. Joined the Jawaharlal Nehru Planetarium as educator in 1994. She has been involved in the preparation of planetarium programs. She initiated teaching astronomy at different levels with 5 days and 3 days workshop called Universe in the Classroom, Introduction to the Night Sky for students, teachers, and laypersons. She initiated the monthly Skywatch program called Know Your Stars, which is conducted on the first Sunday of every month from the year 2000 onwards. Under the aegis of REAP for a program angelized as REAP for BSc student, which was formalized in 2000, she taught basic astronomy and astrophysics till her retirement in 2017. Many interesting student projects on astronomy were guided by her. Using the images of the moon from Clementine, she determined the age of lunar basin by crater frequency distribution. A library of stellar spectra has been prepared as an outcome of the visit to the Vayanubapu Observatory by REAP students. Several asteroids and comets were observed, and the most interesting results was the spectrum of the eclipsed moon. She was involved in several educational activities as member of textbook committees, board of studies, advisory panels for science centers and museums. She has written more than 300 popular articles and several weekly columns in Prajavani periodicals. Her monthly Skywatch column is running since August 1999. Shylaja became the senior scientific officer, the deputy director, and took charge as the director in 2012. The Sky Theatre was renovated for the installation of new hybrid projectors from Skull's Eyes. With the enthusiastic support from all colleagues and local talent, the first attempt to produce an in-house planetarium program was successful. She got several installations. She got several new installations in Science Park, the Parallel Globe Jantar Mantar replicas, anti-gravity cottages, and Avon's Room. Shylaja obtained her MSc in Physics from Bangalore University and PhD from Indian Institute of Astrophysics, working on Wolf-Rayet binary stars. Her subject of interest includes comets, peculiar stars, and nova. She has more than 120 publications in referred journals and 17 books. Shylaja has been keen in the history of astronomy. She is currently working on stone inscription, translations, and analysis manuscripts of 17th century and astronomical aspects of temples, monuments, and artworks. So we have a very good speaker, and I think we will be enjoying the talk. So Dr. Shylaja, you can start your presentation.
Thank you. That was a nice long introduction. Hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
I started working on this topic almost 25 years ago, when there was an eclipse through India which passed through Rajasthan and those places. And then I came to know that this is a very big, very rich source of eclipse records. So I started studying them, and then it was almost like jumping into the ocean. So I have picked up only a few pebbles here and there. So I'm going to share that with you now. So I'll share my PPT now. One minute. I think I should open this and then share. Okay, you are able to.
Yeah, it is coming.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll go full screen. So are you able to see it full screen now?
It has not yet come.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So it is. What I'm going to tell is about the unusual records that I found on stone inscriptions, because stone inscriptions are generally records from for various purposes.
1 minute. I think the screen is not yet visible in my screen. Means your presented screen. Are others able to see?
It's not visible to.
Yeah. So can you
stop
sharing and
once more? To me.
Are you able to see the slide which is titled "The Records"?
No. Nothing is coming.
Okay.
So it is coming to me.
No, it is coming. So somebody said.
You can stop sharing and reshare it once more.
Now, what are you seeing?
It's coming. Let's see.
No, the problem comes when I go full screen, isn't it?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Now you can. Now it's coming. You can go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So
now you
I'll go full.
You do one thing. You have to go full screen. Can you just try F5 once?
Yeah, now I am on full screen.
But it has not become full screen here. Or lower that arrow slider. Can you put it as 100? That will also do, I think. Or F5, whatever is. No, don't do that. That is blocking part of the slide. I think F5 you try. F5.
This is okay, I think, isn't it? No, this is too small.
This is too small.
Okay, so this is good.
And this one
Good.
beside that slider, there is one window type of icon. Can you press that? I think it will work. There are four icons. Yeah, that one. Press it.
Is this okay now?
It has not come here. I don't know whether others can see full screen.
No.
No, it's not coming. You can just once more press it.
Now I went to the second slide. Did you see the second slide?
No, it has not gone.
I think F5 is working. F5.
Okay, so I will manage this
now
way.
It has come to second slide. Yeah, it has come to second slide.
Oh, I see. Okay, that means it is a question of a delay.
But full screen it is not coming. So yeah, now you have pressed the full screen, but somehow I think once more, can you press the full screen? That fourth icon, that square.
Yes, sir, it is coming, sir. It is coming, sir.
Okay, let us see.
Shylaja ma'am, you need to share the PPT separately.
I know, but I can't. I am not
Okay, in that case,
able to do that.
okay, in that case, just press that small arrow near the question mark on the top right. That is what I guess. Your sharing is stopped, so once you reshare it, just press that small arrow mark next to the question mark on the top right.
Okay. I did that. Now let us see.
Share the screen.
You have to share the screen. Yeah.
Now I'll try full screen again.
Yeah.
Is this better?
This is better.
Is this okay? Now please tell me. I'm going to the.
Better.
It is not full
Did
screen.
I?
It's not yet.
Are you seeing the second slide? The records?
No.
It's not selected the slide. No, it's on the side.
There is a
Your
delay.
PPT window is being shared.
So right now better, sir. Right now better.
So how do I manage?
Somebody if full screen is difficult, you put it with that small screen only. You speak. Then
okay.
We can. Yeah.
Okay, I'll continue. So when it comes to the animation part, you will take over, right?
Yeah, I'll take it. You share it once more.
Okay, so this is the second slide you are seeing the records.
Yes.
Okay, so I was telling that the records shown. Anything?
Yes, ma'am. Clearly visible.
Okay, you can continue.
Okay, so now how do I show the pointer? I can't use the pointer. That is the problem. Okay.
Anyway, you can continue. We can see your mouse or whatever you want.
Okay, my mouse you can see, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So the records start from 3rd century BC, and the picture that you are seeing here is from the town Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh. So this is from 3rd century BC, I said, about the visit of a Greek person to this place. So similarly, you have and the here somewhere here the inscription, the text will be written. So the most difficult part is to read this, because you have the problem of languages. This one particularly is not Sanskrit, it is Pali or something, and then you have them preserved in copper plates also. The advantage is that this is not an exhausted source. They are being excavated even now. So I'll show you one later, which was excavated in Bengaluru city just 2 years ago. So now here you have the records. Why are these records important? This was because of the details it contains on the time of the event. So they are usually recorded as gifts or donation made to temples or scholars, or sometimes to commemorate the death of a war hero, somebody who was killed in a war, or somebody who was killed while fighting with a wild animal to protect the community, or commemorate the sati. Some saints, some particular sect of saints would self-immolate themselves for achieving salvation on the day of the solar eclipse. Therefore, this becomes an eclipse record. But anyway, these are not to be considered as astronomical texts. So just as a common man would have seen it, that's the way it is written, with no particular reference to the astronomical event, because when an eclipse happens, it's so obvious that they feel like mentioning it in the record. Otherwise, it is only a information on the date. So the records were used basically by historians and sociologists because it provides the chronology, geography. But then I found that it contains information on eclipses, both lunar and solar, and solstices, planetary groupings. And then there is a mention of time, length, and area measures, which were perhaps used for taxation. I will show examples of these also. So what I plan to do is mention first about the astronomically significant events, records, then some calendrical investigations. And in the process of this, I found some interesting records which I may call as serendipitous. And then how they will give you a new approach even for historians. That also I'm going to mention. So first I want to mention about the supernova. But before that, what were the earlier studies? So we have a book written almost 100 years ago by A. Venkat Subbaya. So he has studied in detail the dates that are provided in this. And subsequently, P.C. Sengupta also published a book on ancient Indian chronology, because basically different parts of India follow different types of calendars. But fortunately, because of this Shaka, this number, you can unite all of them. And here we have two important works by one Professor M. Chidananda Murthy, who wrote an exhaustive coverage on the social impact of eclipses in 1980, when there was a total solar eclipse through Karnataka. And then, of course, Professor B.V. Subbarayappa and K.V. Sharma, they brought out a book on the history of science, wherein they first recorded a few of them. But subsequently, B.V. Subbarayappa continued the work and compiled a large number of eclipse records, which I will show later. Now, okay, here I have to do something. I had put this as animation. Okay. So first I want to show this, the supernova record. So there was a paper in Nature recently when they spotted a near eastern sighting of supernova record of explosion of 1054. Then before that, Professor Narlikar and Saroja Bhate, they searched all the Indian records for the sighting of the supernova, and their result was negative. So this was their conclusion. They said that it is disappointing. They had exhausted all the literary works of Sanskrit and even the astronomical texts. But however, he puts a note here. The stone inscriptions may still be one source which we have not considered. So that is where I was able to get the right kind of information. So here is a supernova inscription in a village called Phumda in Cambodia. It talks about the installation of a lingam for a temple, and the description given to the Lord Shiva is Shukratara Prabhavaya, which means Shukra means something very bright. Prabhava is influence, which is the same meaning in their language also, Khmer language. And so it means one who created a star which is as bright as Venus. And this is dated 1054 CE. So here they are referring to the Lord Shiva as one who created a star which is as bright as Venus, and the date coincides with that of the supernova. So this is the record. And here is the original, this is the text from the printed version of the inscription. So here is the word Shukratara Prabhavaya. Otherwise, the others are all adjectives for the ascetic as well as the Lord Shiva. So this particular word attracted my attention, and therefore I found out that the date coincides with this. So I conclude that he perhaps saw a star in the sky which was as bright as Venus, and therefore decided to record it this way, because only the God can create this kind of a scene in the sky. So this is, okay, this anyway you are not able to read, which is not full screen. So this is the original inscription. Then for the 1604 Supernova Records, we have one stone inscription, and then there is a Sanskrit literary work which is describing this event as a simile, as a bright fire in the Milky Way. That's what it gives as the simile. And there is an astrolabe which is dated 1604. There also it has been marked. This position of this has been marked. So there are 3 records of the 1604. But here we are talking only about the supernova, the stone inscription. So here it is. So okay, I had moved all these things. I have to move this out now. So this is the place called Venur, and this is the temple which has these stone inscriptions. And on the stone inscriptions, the event is constructing this statue by an ascetic who is described as a person who is equivalent of moon in the Milky Way. The word used for the moon is different. It is not moon, it means also camphor. Therefore, whether they were referring to a camphor in the Milky Way, a fire-like thing in the Milky Way, and that the date corresponds to the same event. So it can be concluded that they saw something in bright in the sky, and they used the opportunity to record it in the form of a simile on the stone inscription. We studied, Geeta and myself, we studied a good number of inscriptions all over South India. And here we have put them in different regions, and the legends are not clear to you, but you can make out that there are different symbols, one corresponding to solar eclipses, the other corresponding to lunar eclipses. And here are some extra marks here, 1, 2, 3, only here, but subsequently we found out a few more here and other places. They refer to the total solar eclipses. So total solar eclipse is something that is very relevant here, and I will just explain why it is so important. So what are the words that have been used for recording the total eclipse? For annular eclipse, the word used is Valaya Grahana or Chudamani Grahana. It looks like a Chudamani. Sakala Kali Kalusha. And when it is total, the word Sarvagrasi is used. That means it is total. So as you can see, those who have, I think most of you would have seen the eclipses now because we had a few in the last few years. So the difference between the annular eclipse and total eclipse is very obvious, and therefore they have recorded it accordingly. Now, why these total eclipse records are very valuable and very useful? So let me take you to the ideas of Halley, Edmund Halley, whose name you know because of the comet. He has worked on many other topics also. He had observed that the moon is accelerating. So he guessed that there should be some way of recording or knowing how the moon is accelerating. So this is what he wrote in 1695. The existence of lunar accelerations in that context, I could then pronounce in what proportion the moon's motion does accelerate, which that it does, I think I can demonstrate, and shall, God willing, one day make it appear to the public. This is what he was hoping, that he will be somehow able to prove that the moon is really accelerating. And today we know it from science, we know it. And the immediate consequence of that was not noticeable, but somehow the work by Stephenson in the last 40, 50 years brought out a very important information. Now you have a method of accurately calculating the eclipse duration for the given location. So they found a clay tablet from Babylon which recorded a total solar eclipse, and they could get the date converted to 136 before Christ, before the Common Era. And so here is Babylon, and these are the two paths. What are these two paths? This is the path of totality as you would calculate from the values that you have today. And you know that because of the tidal friction, there is a constant change in the position of the moon, the movement of the moon. So if you apply that correction, then it shifts here. That shifts to, that means either way, it will not pass through Babylon. And therefore, by the type of calculation that you are doing, you are not able to make these two curves of the path of totality fall on Babylon or pass through Babylon. So you have to think of some other type of correction which should be able to explain this. So this he attributed to a slow change in the rate of rotation of the Earth. So this is what Halley was trying to point out, and here this was the first one to show that something is happening. It may not show up in 1 or 2 years or 100 years, but when it comes to 1,000 or 2,000 years, you cannot simply extrapolate the calculations of what you do today to that day, because you do not know the rate of change of the rotation of the Earth. What decides it, you know approximately, but then there are so many parameters which you put in for the equations, and so depending on that, it may shift it more or less, unless you have the right value. So he did he started collecting all eclipse records, because they are the surest records. Unfortunately, here he had a wealth of records from the Arabs and Chinese, and he found what is the type of variation that is happening. I will show you the graph just now. And based on that, now today we have a second degree equation which is being fitted in, and we apply that as a correction called delta T. So what is, sorry. So what is this delta T? This is the delay time. Suppose you assume that the Earth is a homogeneously rotating sphere, and then because of these changes, there has been a small difference as measured. So the difference between the two is called delta T, and for the calculation purposes, it has been adjusted to 0 for 1800, and the rate has been fixed based on these second degree equation which was derived by Stephenson. Now you have the variations very well explained. The moon recedes by about 3.8 centimeters per year, that we know. We have no very good mechanism to study these things. And the increase in the orbital angular momentum, decrease in the spin angular momentum of the Earth, and of course there have been some irregular variations also. So based on this, lot of calculations today we do, and so we are able to verify this, whether this is correct or not. Now for this, we have to have accurate measures of the eclipse timings, which was available from Arabs and China, but not from India. So there is no record of the timings of the eclipse as observed in any astronomical text. All the astronomical texts give you methods of calculation, but nowhere it says that this is the time I observed the eclipse starting and this is the time when it ended. So this kind of a logbook is not available. So we have to depend on other types of records, and that is where these inscriptions came in as a very handy tool. So for example, here is the eclipse, annular eclipse of 1087 August 1. This is recorded as a Sarvagrasi Grahana, that is a total eclipse. So they give the details of the month, the year and other things. As you can see, it is passing through South India. So we have a record right on the path of totality for this place. So this was used by Professor Soma to calculate the limits of this value of delta T, the rate of variation, how much it can be. So actually there are 5 records of these eclipses. As you can see here, these crosses, One of them only mentions that it is a total eclipse. The others do not say it is total, it just says eclipse. So we are guaranteed of one place here, and this is the path of totality. And on the path of totality, now we are able to fix that this is the path. If this is the path, then we can fix the northern limit or the southern limit looking at the details of the calculation. So when that was done, the value of delta t was found to be 1165 seconds. So many seconds is the correction of delta t for this particular year. Similarly, there was another 1107. For this also, there were 3 records. Only one of them mentioned. See, it is so off. It is very much off. But assuming that this record is genuine, and then the person actually saw it and therefore he recorded it, it comes to 1072 seconds. So this is the kind of correction we are able to apply for the rate of rotation of the Earth. So we found so many records. For example, for this one, in the year 819. So this was in a place called Saligrama, a village near Hasana. And this one is, it clearly mentions Valaya Grahana, which means annular eclipse. And this is the one I mentioned, 1087 eclipse. There are so many records, but only one mentions that it is total. Similarly, there is among the 3 records, only one mentions that it is annular. And similarly, there is another one where it mentions eclipse. And these kinds of records we were able to get. So this is where it became very interesting. So when we, after we published this, Geeta found 2 more records. So one is in Bagalkot and the other is in Shimoga. So this is the pillar in Pattadakallu where it is written. So it is right on the path of totality here. So this is the eclipse. And so we were able to fix this onto the curve by Stephenson. So this is the curve I was mentioning. So what was the value of delta t 8,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, etc. is marked by this. So what are all these dots? These dots are all Chinese observations. And there is a small difference here, which you cannot make out in this. So others are basically Arab records. Now, these are all based, the curve is based on this, and these are the theoretical calculations. So as you can see, the moment you go to 6,000, the moment you go to 400 BCE itself, there is so much of a variation. So whether there are variations like this within this, etc., we do not know. So a smooth curve has been drawn, and that's the equation we are using. These red dots here, red lines here, are the ones that was provided by the stone inscriptions that I mentioned. So we have been able to supply some data points here based on which the curve can be improved. And suppose we are able to provide some more points here, this kind of a disparity which you see, say, in 600 years ago, 1600 years ago, and so on, can be improved. And that is where these stone inscriptions are playing a very important role. So I am now on the lookout for those records for the eclipses. So here is one. Okay, I have to move this out. This is in the city of Bengaluru, and here it is. You can see the stone here, and this stone is right on the edge of the road. So, but still it is preserved. Although you can see that it is a nice locality within the city, it has been well preserved by the initiative of the youth in the leadership of P.L. Uday Kumar. They have taken a nice photo of this and then provided this. That is, they have taken a 3D print of this, and every letter has been decoded. So this is an eclipse record. It gives you here the name of the Samvatsara and then the Shaka year, and it says clearly here Suryoparaga, which means solar eclipse. This is the same eclipse which was observed by the famous astronomer Parameshwara in the confluence of Neela River. Today it is called Ponnani. It is in the northern part of Kerala, where this river Neela goes and joins the sea. That was the place from where he was making observation. So in the year 1431, August 8th, so this is what he saw as the eclipse. And this is what Bangalore saw. In any case, both of them have recorded the eclipse. So this is a very interesting thing, but if it was a total eclipse, it would have given us a very important information, but this was only partial. Anyway, you can understand the importance of the stone inscriptions in this process. There are many more such things. So this is another one interesting thing. Here is a total eclipse. So this is the world map. As you can see, this is the path of totality. See, the partial phase is ending in Kerala. It is ending in Kerala. And so it's very, very unlikely that people in Karnataka would have seen it. But then there is not one, but then 5 records of this eclipse exist in Karnataka. So it's not a coincidence that all the 5 of them assume that it is an eclipse that they are seeing and wrote it. So what does it mean? It means that in the calculation of this path of the shadow, we may have to make some adjustment so that it becomes visible in South India, which means this may shift to the north, which requires that we should have similar records from this part of, from somewhere in this part of the globe. And when they become available, then it may happen that this will shift slightly to the north so that the mention in these records are justified. So this is what is important here. Then I mentioned about planetary phenomena. So in 1665, there were so many planets. I inverted this image so that you can see almost all the naked eye planets were with the sun, and there was a solar eclipse also. You know, this nodes, these nodes, ascending and descending nodes, are given the name Rahu and Ketu, and they are also declared as planets. So one of them, it is definitely here, so that adds to the number of planets because it has been given the status of a planet. And whenever there was such a planetary grouping, it was an opportunity for the king to make donations, and it was called Tula Purusha Dana. That means he would sit in a balance, and maybe gold or whatever equivalent to his weight would be distributed among the scholars and poor people and all those. So that was conducted in the year 1665 by the Mysore Maharaja, and we have several records of that in the vicinity of Mysore, and it was a total eclipse in Mysore. Similarly, there is a record of the 1552 February grouping, and from because these dates are mentioned in the lunar calendar, it can be February 24th or January 25th. Both options become available, and the epigraphist put a question mark as to whether which one of the two is correct. But we found that January 25th is better because this grouping is more prominent on that day. Similarly, 6th March 1397, there was a grazing occultation of Jupiter, which has been mentioned as moon with Jupiter. So within, say, a span of an hour, you can make out that Jupiter has just touched the moon and has proceeded. So perhaps this event was observed with naked eyes. There is another inscription from Angkor Wat, Cambodia. Earlier I mentioned about the 1054 thing that was also from Cambodia. Cambodia houses a large number of Sanskrit inscriptions, and in most cases, a translation of the same exists in the local language also. which makes us very easy to follow what has been written there, because a second copy is made available. And here, everything looks very normal here. The name of the month is Vaishakha, Chitra, all these things. Sun and Saturn in Taurus, Mars and Rahu in Gemini, Moon in Libra, Jupiter in Scorpio, Mercury, Venus and Ketu in Aries. The only question that came up was that of Ketu. You know, Rahu and Ketu are 180 degrees away. If Rahu is in Gemini, Ketu cannot be in Aries. It has to be 180 degrees away. Therefore, they saw something in Aries which they have written as Ketu. So at first instance, you feel that it may be a comet, perhaps. But then I cross-checked. There was no comet in that year anywhere in the region. Then I found that there is a Chinese record that there are two eruptions. They have recorded the stellar eruptions as guest stars. Two of them in the same month, but 2 years later. So whether this kind of a sign was noticed, then I searched thoroughly and found that it is probably the brightening event of pre-planetary nebula of NGC 7662. So this is the planetary nebula here, and people who have studied this have found that this is how it looks through the telescope, and the HST results from this has shown that it has two different lobes, and one they date it to say some 600 years ago. It must have happened, and the other one much earlier, maybe 2500 years earlier. So they have been able to time this based on the velocity of the expanding shell. So whether these people saw that and mistook it for another planet and recorded it, I do not know. Or they mistook it for a comet and recorded it, that also we do not know. And this is the next one. This is the drawing of Vedhi as described in Sulba Sutra. Sulba Sutra is one of the oldest texts, and people have studied it very thoroughly. It shows the excellence in geometry and the preparation of the altar for sacrificial rites. So there are 3 Agnis, and these are the places for the 3 Agnis. This is what is written in all textbooks. So nobody knew very clearly how they should be spaced, but then the Sulba Sutra gives directions as to how it should be placed. The difference between the distance between these two and these two, etc., is all described very thoroughly. So it cannot be so symmetrical. See, this looks almost like a isosceles triangle. So we found one stone copper plate inscription in which these 3 have been marked. These 3 have been marked here. And so these are the 3 Vedis, and see the asymmetry here. This is how it is. And this is called Dakshinagni. So I worked on the meaning of Dakshinagni and found that it is different in the 3 Sulba Sutras, which are placed, say, 300 to 400 years apart. So it could be some kind of an indication on the shift of this 23.5 degrees tilt, or whether these people who are performing these rituals moved south so that the position of this had to be changed. So this is another indication that came out of the study of the inscriptions. Okay. So again, I'm sorry about this. So this is the inscription in a place called Patan in Maharashtra. This gives the lineage of Bhaskaracharya, second Bhaskaracharya. And this is the text itself. Bhaskara, whose father and grandfather names are given. Bhaskara had a son called Lakshmidhara, and Lakshmidhara had a son by name Changadeva. It is Changadeva who got this stone inscription here in Patan. And so this is what is described here. So we have definitely a clear idea on the lineage of Bhaskaracharya, and he didn't have a daughter called Lilavati as per this. Similarly, we have found many other inscriptions wherein the names of the scholars have been written down. One particular name is Shankara Narayana Joysaru, who authored several works, and one particular one is dated 1604 called Ganita Gannade. This is a Kannada text which I recently translated, and it is available as an English translation. Then we have other names like Golaya Bhatta and Vidhana Bhatta. They were also scholars for whom grants were given and honors were given. So we have to find out who they were and where their works are indicated. And then zero. The contribution by Indians, they say, is zero, but you know that it is not zero that they contributed, but it is the place value system. So when was we write zero as a dot today. When was this first written? So we have three things here. This is Gwalior on a temple. Here is the symbol for zero. And this is again from Cambodia. Here you see a symbol for zero. You see this is 683 CE. This is 876. And recently I read a report that from Assam, they have found it earlier than 4th century. So here it is the zero. So Aryabhatta is dated 476 CE. So there was a zero before him. So this is what I am trying to say. Okay. Then there are other interesting records like the earthquake record. This Deccan Plateau is a very stable place, so not many earthquakes you hear about. But there was one in the 16th century, and that has been recorded on a stone inscription near Bangalore. And this plague as a pandemic has been recorded in another inscription. And what were the measures taken for saving people from this pandemic? That is also written in this stone inscription. And another interesting thing is that there is a commemorative inscription for a dog. So if you visit Bangalore, next to the Vishveshwaraya Industrial and Technological Museum, there is a museum of these archaeological material. So if you go there, you will see this original stone inscription, which is for a dog. The dog gave his life for saving the community by fighting with some tiger or some such animal. And so there is an inscription for that. I also found that a music lesson has been inscribed on a stone inscription. When I say music lesson, those of you who have been learning music from gurus in the classical way, you know typically how they would write a music lesson. So the first line will have some notations. The second line will have the script for it. And then there will be some dots, dashes, etc. corresponding to whether you should expand the word or sing it for a longer time, etc. Exactly the same way it is written in a stone inscription. So this tradition of writing music, writing the music lessons is at least 500-year old. So that we come to know from the stone inscription. Many of these stone inscriptions give details of the flora and fauna of the region, which in turn can be used for ecological studies. So one person from West Bengal, he found the description as so much of land has been given as a grant to some X or Y. And what are the boundaries of this? So in the north, there is a temple. In the south, there is a lake. In the east, there is a hill. And towards the south, there is a valley. All these things have been described. And he went and found that they are exactly the same, but for the lake, which has now shrunk in size. So these kinds of work can be done using these stone inscriptions. So here is the interesting thing I told you about the Bangalore. This is any question? I heard some voice.
All of you, please unmute.
Okay, so here is the inscription I mentioned about. I'm hearing my own voice.
Mr. Ram Shankar Tiwari, can you unmute? Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so this is the stone inscription that was discovered inside Bangalore city in the year 2018, and it was in a graveyard. So this is the news item, and I again thank Udaya Kumar for providing me the details of this. And it says that this is the work of Uday Kumar and his team. They have converted this stone into this kind of a model so that you can read what is written there very clearly. It's called Pattandur Lake. Pattandur Lake is now in the heart of the city, and it is dated 1043. It clearly mentions that the lake, the dam for the lake was constructed along with the other 3 temples in the vicinity. So somehow this stone remained in the same place, and today if you see the map of Bangalore, or if you happen to visit Bangalore, you will notice that this is at the quite far from the lake, which also means how much of land has been taken away for civilized people. So this is now they are planning something to close the lake and construct something above that, and to show that this lake is 1,000-year-old. This inscription has come in as a handy evidence. Perhaps it will go to the court also, I do not know. And this is another inscription inside the campus of Indian Institute of Science. So this is Professor Balasubramaniam, S.N. Balasubramaniam of the Biochemistry Department of Indian Institute of Science, who brought my attention to this particular piece of stone here. His children saw this when they were playing around, so they reported to him. He identified this as a Veeragallu, that is a commemorative stone for a war hero. It's not a war hero. When we went there, got it cleaned, it was for a hero who fought with an animal, perhaps a tiger or some such animal, and maybe he died in the process, and so a commemorative stone was installed here. This is at the edge of the Sankey tank. So perhaps, all such things are usually, the last rites are performed near the tank, and therefore perhaps the tank extended right up to here. That is possible. So I thank Professor Balasubramaniam for this, and I think now they have, again, Uday Kumar and his team, they have been successful in restoring this and making a model of this. Unfortunately, nothing is written on this. So maybe there is another piece, because this appears broken. So maybe there is another piece somewhere lying. So if they find that, and if something is written on that, the exact date of this can be found out. Now I want to tell about the length, volume, and weight measures and standards. But now on the inscriptions, you will find only this length standard. So if you want to fix the tax for any area, you need a yardstick. So that yardstick is available in the temples along with the stone inscriptions. The name will be written. So this is from the famous temple in Belur. So if you happen to visit Belur, which you will do invariably when you visit the historical places. So here is a small scale. I don't know whether in this enlargement you can see it. There are graduations here. This is the length measure. Using this, they would measure the area of any land and fix the tax. This is from another temple. On the wall of the temple, you will see a scale here also. And that was, again, that's near Arsikere, another small village. And this is these are the feet of Gomateshwara, the 60 feet statue in Shravanabelagola. And if you go, you are allowed to go very close to it and offer your prayers. And here is the scale. So next time when you visit, you can look at the scale here. The scale is marked here. So these kinds of inscriptions also are of great interest. You can see how the scales have evolved, and the British have recorded that these scales were different in different regions. So the local people would measure using this kind of scale and fix the tax. They wanted to uniformly bring in one system, so they introduced the FPS system, and the rest is history. These were forgotten. I told you about the work of Vedhi Subbarayappa. He compiled eclipse records from all over India. So he was concentrating only on the epigraphic indica, which means mostly Sanskrit records. So as you can see here, from the year 440 to 1815, he found so many records. And between 1066 and 1190, you can see that there is a great increase in the records. Now, this is for the historians to find out why there is such a great wealth of records in this particular year. I feel it may be because the country was very prosperous and the kings were donating heavily to scholars and temples and others during this time. And just after this, the Mughal invasion and so on, and therefore that became almost zero here, I can say. But that is my guess. It's for the historians to come up with a different theory. But in any case, it shows how many records are available. This is just from one set of volumes called Epigraphic Indica. So, but this is not complete because the regional languages have not been taken into account. I want to show you a beautiful animation provided to me by Udaya Kumar, and because the video was not playing here, I have requested Mr. Ganguly to play it for you. So finally, what I want to say is that these stone inscriptions are a new treasure house. So you have a record from different geographical locations. You can study the evolution of the calendar. You can record unusual celestial events, including eclipses, and you can study ecology and many more, as I have described. So I have written thanks because I expected that this is going to be the last slide. I have to thank the Regional Science and Center and Planetarium of Calicut, and of course POEC of ASI, and all of you for having patiently listened to me. Now I'll stop sharing and I will explain the video that is coming up now, which he will play from his computer. So this shows the map of Bengaluru as you see it today, and then there is a time scale on the right side which will start showing up the inscriptions. As per the date of the inscriptions, the locations of the inscriptions will show up. So in a city like Bengaluru itself, a small region, so many inscriptions are available. So it must be the same in your towns and in your villages and in your cities. So it's high time, like Udaya Kumar, who has started this work in Bengaluru. He has started collecting and creating awareness on the importance of these inscriptions. So some youth in your towns also may start doing it. So I thank you all, and now I stop sharing. So here is the map of Bengaluru, and here is the timeline that is coming up in the right side. So you can see the year, and one by one the dots will start showing up. As you can see, more and more number of inscriptions have started appearing, and the blue color indicates the Kannada inscriptions. And now see Tamil inscriptions start coming up, and that is because of the political reasons. Those people were ruling it for a while. And now you see, as time proceeds, how many inscriptions have been found within the city of Bengaluru. So many have been lost already because construction workers have taken it away. They have been sort of lost. I think you can play that once again because I have to explain the graph. The graph here on the right side shows two peaks. In the graph by Subbarayappa, there was only one corresponding to the 11th century. Now you will see two peaks here. Please observe. See, this is the 11th century peak. Number of inscriptions are on the increase. Now you see there is a sudden increase after the 13th century until about 16th century. This is because of the donations by the Vijayanagara kings, Krishna Devaraya and his predecessors. So now you see within such a small city of Bengaluru, small in comparison with the size of India. So when you are able to see so many, and Bengaluru was not such a great historically important town as compared to Kanchi or any other town, Udupi or any such place. So maybe you will find a lot of such stone inscriptions in your villages also. So it's high time that you preserve them and extract informations which I just mentioned like this. So this is what I wanted to tell you. I thank you all for having listened to me very patiently. So thank you very much. If there are any questions and if I know the answer, I will answer.
Yeah, please, anybody has any questions, you can directly ask, unmute, or you can type in the chat box. While the talk was going on, there was already one question, which I will just read it. What does Chudamani means? That was one question.
Chudamani.
Yeah.
Chudamani is something you wear on the hand, something like this. This is Chudamani. You know the story of Ramayana. Hanuman went all the way to Lanka and collected this Chudamani from Sita and brought it back to Rama. So that is Chudamani.
Any other question? Okay, while people are asking or writing the question, I would like to ask one thing, that are these cross means stones, they are cross reference, means same astronomical event observed from two different places indicate this same thing. They are studied.
Yeah, I told you that one particular total eclipse, we have 5 records. And that Tula Purusha Dana, there are at least 7 or 8 records, because it was an event celebrated by the Maharaja himself. So he got so many places this activity done, and so they all have inscribed, because this was only the deed. This is a deed, edict. So he writes that so many acres have been given to so and so. Nobody can question that. So that is why such records are very relevant and very important.
Harshavardhan has written a question. What are some total solar eclipses? Why are some total solar eclipses annular while others completely cover the sun?
No, that is simple to understand, because I think there are so many YouTube videos which explain this, and I also have made a couple of them. It's because of the elliptical orbit of the moon. Simple, because of the elliptical orbit of the moon, the distance between the sun and the earth, and the sun and the moon and the earth keep changing every day. But that change is so small that you are not able to make out with your naked eye. But when the eclipse happens, a small change in the angular size of the sun and the moon is sufficient to make it. If the sizes exactly match, it will be a total eclipse. If the moon is falling short by a few maybe arc seconds, then it becomes an annular eclipse. So you all had seen one. You were in the path of totality, right? Some 3 years ago. You all have enjoyed that sight. It's a rare sight. And it exactly looks like a Chudamani, right? Exactly looks like that.
We have one question from Upen Vashani. Is there any course we can take to learn more details?
No, this is interdisciplinary. You have to know a good basic astronomy for this, and you also should know what is written in the stone inscriptions. the difference in the languages over the years. So you'll have to consult a person who knows. It's just not sufficient if you know the language, but you should know the language and the grammar, how it was, say, 400 years ago. So usually those people will not be experts in astronomy. So this is interdisciplinary. Therefore, two such people will have to join hands and work on this kind of a project. One should be, if see, for example, Suryoparaga, that was the word that was used. So you should know that Uparaga means an eclipse. So these kinds of the coordination between two different disciplines is needed for this. So you first have to, just as the question that was asked, you should know the difference between an annular eclipse and a total eclipse. So if the word Chudamani comes in the inscription, you should be conscious that this word means annular eclipse. So this is important.
One more. Before I go to the next question, I would like to. What is the language of this inscription? Whether there is diversity in the language in this
Yes.
inscription?
See, the book and the graph that I showed you only covering Karnataka part was because of our limitation on the language. We can read only Kannada. I cannot read other languages. And partly Telugu, but not all of it. So, because of this problem, we had to restrict our study to only the central part of South India. So if somebody is interested in doing this in Kerala or Tamil Nadu, you should know not only those two languages, reading and writing, but how the script was in those days. The script looks completely different. The script has evolved. So you need experts in that. And as you move north, you will encounter the inscriptions in Prakrit, Pali, and other languages. So you need people to read those languages also. So language is the main reason why I think this kind of an approach has not been done. But it does not mean that it's impossible. Historians do that, but their approach is for a different purpose. So if astronomy is the aim, then these astronomers should join hands with those people and try to understand what is written there. So that is important.
And we have one question, not directly related, but anyway, where can we learn the type of problems astronomers solve on a daily basis mathematically? So,
I did not get what it means. Daily, what is the meaning of daily problems? I do not know.
And the type of maths required for the problems which astronomers solve on a daily basis, like
No, I know,
the
but
required topics.
when you
What
say
could be done?
problems on daily basis, what do you mean? Making the calendar or recording the events?
In the normal, the typical types of problems and astronomer the types of questions they have to solve the research problems, all that.
You give me one example. Then I will understand what is the problem about.
I'm like predicting the orbits of a body, the predicting the properties of a black hole.
Oh, no. Wait a minute. Now, orbit of a planet and orbit of a black hole, they cannot be compared.
Yes, ma'am, they are different, but like, there were two examples, like what kind of maths should we know to solve all these, and where
I
should we
think
learn?
it depends on the problem.
Yeah.
If you are solving positional astronomy, you should know spherical trigonometry and all those things. If you are solving relativistic black holes and all, you should know tensor and relativistic equations. And I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
So, any other questions or discussions or comments? So if there are no more questions, I would like to thank Dr. B S Shylaja for giving us such a wonderful talk. I like something like in Angkor Wat of Cambodia, some Rahu and Ketu were written in wrong way, and from there some inferences were drawn. So like that, many problems can be has been solved and will be solved also in future. And what I understand is that this part of the knowledge, that learning from stone inscription, which a part of which is done by Dr. Vahia also. He also spoke in tribal astronomy about certain aspects, and many, like in Coursera also I saw some courses in offered in RQ astronomy. So I was asking him whether in India any such courses can be given. So he said that in future we will think about it. So anyway, it was a very enlightening talk, and I thank you to have given so much
Thank
time.
you. I'm sorry about that confusion about putting the PowerPoint in full screen. So I'm sorry about that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you because you listened to me very patiently. Thank you.